If you have ever felt like totally alone and like everything is messed up and everything is effed and everything is ruined and what is going on and like this implosion crisis where like the world is collapsing around you, which I feel like I felt at every job except for different times. This book is a light in a dark room.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about. Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to Higher Ed Pulse, your Monday morning energizer covering insights and trends in higher ed marketing and enrollment. I'm Mallory Willsea, bringing over 15 years of ed tech and marketing expertise to your earbuds.
And I'm Seth Odell, joining the Pulse with my own adventures from leading marketing at top universities to founding Kanahoma, one of the industry's fastest growing digital marketing agencies.
Each week, we bring you the kind of insider insights you typically only find over cocktails with your pals at a conference.
It's fast, it's fun, and it's designed for you, the busy higher ed professional.
You're not just listening to another podcast.
You're checking the pulse of higher education.
Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher ed professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. It is officially the busiest conference week of the fall. If you are listening to this when the episode drops, we are at High Ed Web, and by we, I mean me. I am at High Ed Web right now, and in a couple of days, I will be at NACAC. Seth, how much FOMO are you feeling that you are not hanging out with me at conferences all week?
A little bit, not gonna lie. It was so great seeing you at conferences this spring, so I am. It is unfortunate that I'm not there. It's definitely a couple of conferences I would love to get to, so next year has got to be the answer. But I'm excited to hear how they go this year. It sounds like a lot of good stuff is planned.
I'm so excited for High Ed Web this year. We're in Albuquerque, which I have never thought I'd go to before in my life, and here we go.
Albuquerque is great. I shot a commercial in Albuquerque in January in winter, and it was great outside of the fact that I ran the rental car into a wall on the first day. But I have a story for another day on how I got off with that one. But yeah, Albuquerque is a great town.
I hope I don't run any cars into any buildings.
I hope so too. I hope so for everyone's sake that does not happen.
With my driving skills, it could, but I don't think I'll be behind a wheel this week.
As you're clear, it was really icy.
Yeah,
This is not my fault. It was icy. We were back roads. It's like there's a whole explanation on how I am, and not at all at fault in any capacity. I'm kidding. It was my fault. That was my fault.
Well, if you are at High Ed Web and, not in a vehicle with me, you can listen to my lightning talk. I'm going to be talking about how to build custom GPTs in ChatGPT. And I'm also moderating a women in leadership panel with some really dynamite female leaders from higher ed. So if you're here, find me. We've got a booth. We're going to be doing these talks. It's going to be great. And kind of in the spirit of learning, Seth and I, as we were planning out today's episode, wanted to, focus on learning, on resources. And we have not done a books episode yet. So, yeah. Seth, I got 3 books that I would recommend to anybody, but especially higher ed marketers. Did you come with a few as well?
Yes, I came with 3, and then I think I have like 6 honorable mentions because you know me, I can never keep it condensed.
Overachiever.
Yeah, always. But I have my core 3 that I recommend to folks, so I'm ready to go. I don't know if you want to tee it off.
I'm going to kick us off with a book that's been super foundational for me called Crossing the Chasm. I think anybody who's probably done a master's program has had to read this one by author Jeffrey Moore. The book analyzes why some seemingly great products never seem to catch on. And the biggest challenge is usually moving from the stage of early success with innovators into getting fully into the mass market. And I bet a lot of our listeners have heard of the technology adoption life cycle. This is the book where that comes from. And in the book, Moore breaks it down. He identifies like what the real challenge is, which he calls the chasm, and kind of that gap between early adopters who are willing to take risks on new technology versus the early majority, which are known for being just more cautious and pragmatic. And Seth, I really love books that are highly usable. And I have found this book all throughout my career to be essentially like the step-by-step roadmap that like explains why there's great tech products that are great but still fail. And the book identifies some really good strategies to kind of reach that mainstream audience. And I think that for higher ed right now, we're increasingly relying on new technologies to reach and attract students. But oftentimes those innovations struggle to reach campus-wide adoption. And we're always talking about the silos, right? And so for a higher ed marketer, this can be a really great book. If you understand that tech adoption lifecycle, you can apply it to your institution. You can segment maybe even your audiences in different ways. And, I think it's a great thing to apply to pilot programs, new initiatives, or even just adoption of new innovations on a campus.
I love it. That's a great one. And I'll tell you that I have not read that, so it's going on my list. I'll be curious how many of these we don't have on each other's list. I don't know if we've ever shared our reading lists, even though I know we both read a lot. So my first book that I recommend just to everybody in marketing is a book called Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, who's the founder of Nike. It's about the founding of Nike, and if you've seen the movie Air, it's like that times 100, even better. It's exceptionally well written. I do believe he had a ghostwriter, but it's like the prose is stunning. The story is crazy. His view of the world is great. And there's a quote in there that has been really a backbone for me since founding Kanahoma, which is a quote that goes, "The cowards never started and the weak died along the way. That leaves us, ladies and gentlemen, us." And it was in a speech that Phil Knight gave at a point when Nike was about to go bankrupt. And it was this whole thing. And so when I first founded Kanahoma, I made all these pennants that say "that leaves us." And I shipped them out to a bunch of friends. If you're listening to this and you want one, find me on LinkedIn. I actually think I still have a box of them somewhere. And so anybody messages me, I'll send you a "that leaves us" custom pennant that I made. But Shoe Dog, Phil Knight, everybody should read, but in particular marketers. It is a marketer's story and it's beautiful. So read Shoe Dog by Phil Knight.
Consider it in my Kindle. I have heard so many people recommend this book over the years. I've just never picked it up. And I have that pennant, but I did not know that is where the quote came from.
Yeah.
So awesome. All right. Well, my next book is another really foundational book that was introduced to me in my master's program. It is The 10 Types of Innovation by Larry Keeley. I've definitely referenced this book before on this podcast. If you are just simply looking to expand your understanding of innovation, this is a great book for you. Some of the core principles is that innovation isn't just about the product, right? It's not just about making a better mousetrap. It can happen in a lot of different areas of your business. In fact, there's 10 of them. And it can be things like your profit model to your customer engagement, your service model, your brand, and more. And the real takeaway for me is that because there's 10 types, if you just focus on one of those types, like say product performance, it's limiting your potential and giving your competitors an easier way to overcome you. So the author and his team encourages readers to think more broadly and kind of find the opportunities to innovate in the odder areas like internal process innovation or network partnerships. And so when you have this framework, right back to I love highly usable books, when you have a framework like this, it can really expand your thinking. And again, connecting this for higher ed marketers, we're under a lot of pressure right now to differentiate and to attract students and likely from different markets, right? Non-traditional adults, et cetera. So the book is going to give us a perspective on how to create lasting change in value and kind of push to think beyond just let me refresh my campaign creative or how I'm, using this or that digital platform. But what about the service model for your students? What about partnerships with companies or how you structure tuition, right? These are the types of harder to replicate areas of innovation. And the book really puts it all into some great context.
That's awesome. Another one I haven't read, so another one on the list. I love it. So my second book is going to be a book called Principles by Ray Dalio. So Ray Dalio is the founder and chief investor of Bridgewater Associates, one of the best investors of all time. And it's basically a book that outlines his approach to life and management. And to me, it was an introduction to systems thinking and the way he thought about building out Bridgewater. It is a book that my previous job, when I ran a 50 plus person in-house agency, I bought this book for every single person and gave it to every single employee because I felt like there was so much gold in there about the way they approach things. Just a couple examples. He talks about radical transparency And it's like the ability to have extremely blunt and direct conversations. That was just, I thought, really interesting. And he also talks about like running a team like a meritocracy where the best ideas come forward regardless of where they come from in the organization. And it's just, the book is so well written. It's very thought out. It's dense and it's thick, but like I think anybody who is in a management or a leadership role should have Principles by Ray Dalio on the shelf, and you should give it a read. I've read it 3 times. It's one of the few books I've read multiple times, at least business books I've read multiple times. So Principles by Ray Dalio is book number 2 for me.
Awesome. Also not on my bookshelf. So, and I would love to know how to have more blunt conversations in a better way. So I will pick that one up for sure. All right. My last one, I know I've mentioned this multiple times. I'm a Melina Palmer fangirl, y'all. She was the best keynote speaker at our Engage Summit this past summer. And her book that she based that keynote on, What Your Customer Wants and Can't Tell You, it's a game changer. And the connections for us marketers are very direct. I actually just last episode talked a bit about how like the subconscious mind plays a role in decision making for students and parents. They can't often articulate why they're choosing one thing over another. And that is exactly what this book gets at. The big takeaway for me from this book is that people are more influenced by things like framing, which is how the choices are even presented, and loss aversion than I ever realized. And the book covers this concept of anchoring, which is when the first piece of information we hear sets the tone for how we perceive its value. So think about like the number 7, right? Depending on the context, depending on the anchoring of the number 7, that number might be huge, it might be small, it might be fast, it might be slow. And so she uses examples like that all throughout the book to really drive home her principles. But if you work in higher ed marketing and you're communicating with students, like, I mean, this is exactly why we have Melina at our Engage Summit. Like, this book is for you. It is a toolkit to understand why students and parents make decisions the way they do and how to influence them without ever getting their surface level feedback.
I love it. Very, very cool. Another one not on my read list. So goes to the to read list for sure.
Love it.
My third one is another one that I've gifted to just about everybody who directly reports to me for the last, I think, 3 jobs. So it's a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. So Ben Horowitz is a Silicon Valley investor and like a very, very popular, and he's a co-founder of Andreessen Horowitz. But his book is like the anti-business book. The thesis is that like most business books are all tainted with survivor bias, meaning it's like, let's find the business that survived and did great and have them tell you how it all worked out for them. And instead, Ben's book basically goes through like the failures of his early businesses, bankruptcies, layoffs. It's just like an absolute train wreck and a tragedy for like more than half the book. And obviously, if you know Ben Horowitz at all, he finds himself at a great place. He's a wildly successful investor. But this is a book that I give to anyone who works for me because it makes you feel less alone. And you don't need to run a business. If you built a business, you should definitely read it. But even if you just like run a department or a team, if you have ever felt like totally alone and like everything is messed up and everything is effed and everything is ruined and what is going on, and like this implosion crisis where like the world is collapsing around you, which I feel like I felt at every job at different times. This book is a light in a dark room. It is like a reminder that anyone who has built anything of substance has struggled. And even if you're not into the technology and the kinds of businesses he built, I just think this book is just so reassuring that building things is really hard and that this is the hard thing about hard things. And so The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz is book number 3. But I do have some honorable mentions. So when we get there, I'm not totally ready yet, but those are my big 3. It took a lot to pin it down to 3, but those are the ones I'd push for the most.
I have not read that book either. How did this happen?
Right. I don't know. This is great. This has like been really very valuable conversation. Even if other folks listening don't, like, I love it. I got what I need out of this. This is perfect.
Ditto. And I'm ready for your list of honorable mentions. Fire away.
Okay, so I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One, if you are a writer in any capacity, you have to read Hey Whipple Squeeze This. It is the most definitive, best book for copywriting ever. It's just so great. Hey Whipple Squeeze This. 2, if you work at all in advertising, you have to read Ogilvy on advertising. It is the godfather of advertising books for a reason. It holds up decades later. Ogilvy on advertising. 3, if you're interested in business, you need to go out and read everything that Jim Collins has written, like Good to Great, How the Mighty Fall, like everything that this man touches is fantastic. And so go read Jim Collins. I've read just about everything. It's always valuable. It's very insightful. 4, if you want to get really in the weeds and outmarket everybody, the name that nobody ever talks about is John O'Shaughnessy. And John O'Shaughnessy is the secret, unknown father of neuromarketing. He was writing about the psychology of why people buy and how in the 80s and 90s, doing all sorts of like formal academic studies. His books are super dense. It's like reading college textbooks. It's not pleasant, but it's wildly informative. So John O'Shaughnessy. Now the problem is his best book, Why People Buy, you can only find it on eBay. It's out of print. It's like $80 to $100. It's worth it. So John O'Shaughnessy is the one that nobody talks about, and he's just really the OG. And then finally, my 5th is just that, like, if you want to be a world-class marketer or, enrollment professional or just business professional, you got to read fiction. And this took me way too long to realize this. For so long in my life, I read books that I thought had to make me better because I was approaching it from a place where I was not enough. And so it's like, I am not enough. I need to tool up. Every book I read is a shield to protect me from some future criticism because I am weak. And it's like, yeah, it made me smarter, I guess. But the reality is that if you want to be a great marketer, you just have to have heightened senses, be alive, be aware of the world around you. Give yourself this great break. Fiction is fantastic. Whatever genre you like, if you want to be a great marketer, don't just read marketing. That's my final thought on that one.
Terrific. Well, that feels like a mic drop, but that's fantastic. I was going to go for a couple too, and then nah, that's it. But you just, I think we've just loaded people up with about 2 years worth of reading.
We're going to have a lot of notes on this. Yeah, there's a lot to figure out. This was a good, you put it on the holiday lists,
That's it.
Especially that John O'Shaughnessy one, because if a couple of you want to buy it, there's not a lot out there. It's going to be $300-400 in no time. So
everyone will be competing with each other on eBay,
exactly.
And then the book is suddenly $1,000.
This is secretly, Mallory, this is when I drop my John O'Shaughnessy collection onto eBay, and it all goes up, and now my master plan has finally played out, where I have just created this unnatural spike in demand for this obscure academics books that I'm the only person that has a collection of.
It's like the GameStop or stock, right?
Yeah, this is my GameStop, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, too good.
For the record, that's not true. I am not selling my collection. It's not happening. That was no. For the record, no.
All right, so I don't know how to pivot out of this one.
We just waved the white flag. That's all we can do.
Yeah, here we are. I know that you're not going to be at these conferences this week, but you are keynoting my next conference, which is the AI Engage Summit. And I don't know, want to give us a little preview of what you're going to talk about?
I would be happy to. I'm super excited. Really looking forward to the AI Engage Summit. If you're not in attendance yet, there is still time, and you need to do it. I am very excited to be the opening keynote. So I'm going to be talking about the state of the state, a candid look at where we are and where we need to go. To tee this up, this has been a talk that I have wanted to do in different capacities for a long time. And so I am coming guns blazing, fully prepared, and really ready. We're going to be opening and talking about a lot of nuances and complexities in where the market is today and what's happening. It'll be well north of 100 slides. And then we're going to be really talking about kind of the shifting role of innovation and where we're seeing a lot of things break out and start to take traction. We are at a place where we're moving from idea to true execution. And so the whole summit is full of great talks that are really specific to individual tracks and areas, different applications. It's really going to be really, really high value. And my talk is going to tee it up. So if you're remotely interested in AI or innovation in education, and you want to feel like you have the definitive foundation to approach that type of work, this is that talk. It is going to be an MBA in 60 minutes. We're going to pack it in. It's going to be a lot. And I really hope people come. I'm looking forward to this talk tremendously.
Well, there is already more than 500 people registered for this event, and it is happening at the end of October. It is virtual, and we will pop the link in the show notes so y'all can come too. I get to MC this puppy, so I'm very excited to be there for those 2 afternoons for the virtual Engage Summit. And Seth, like your opening keynote, if I'm playing favorites, like I'm just gonna say it on the record, like I'm most looking forward to your session. So it's been a long time since I've, metaphorically sat in a room and heard you do a presentation.
Yeah.
And I can't wait. So folks, run, don't walk. We'll drop the link. And we want to know about your book recommendations too. Like, come on, drop them on LinkedIn. Seth and I and Enrollify are all going to be posting this episode. And, I've known Seth for years, and yet here we are showing up with completely different recs.
I will say this. The first 10 people that offer their own book recommendations on LinkedIn, I will personally mail you a copy of Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. So, get the online. Let's all share. Let's give ourselves some inspiration, and I will ship you books if you comment your own recommendations.
But not the expensive eBay ones, no?
No, I made sure. I already know that Shoe Dog is the cheapest, too. I thought about doing Principles by Ray Dalio, but that's hardcover. You totally got me on that. I looked at the cheaper paper.
Oh, Seth, but this is why we love you.
I'm still going to send them, but yeah, that one's like $8 or $9 on Amazon.
And it's still a great book. We're not saying it's any less.
It's a great book. No, but yeah, I'm not sending you the eBay book, and I'm not sending you the Dalio hardcover.
All right. Well, there you go, friends. Go to LinkedIn. Tell us your favorite books. You can get one from Seth.
There you go. Exactly.
All right. Well, everyone who's at HiWeb and NACAC, stop by the Element booth. Say hi. Can't wait to see you. Take some selfies. And until next week, Seth, have a good one, and we'll see you soon. Toodles. The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Brian Gross, Eddie Francis, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.